Hello everyone. I would like to start this international webinar with a quote that is the only way to do great work is to love what you do. So for starting a new chapter of learning, I, a single being your host for today's event, want to extend a warm welcome and very good afternoon to all of you present here. And I hope you all are doing amazing. On behalf of whole STEM family, I welcome you all for today's international webinar on the topic how to drive product-led growth for SaaS products. And to add our guest of honor and today's speaker, Mr. Nishant Arora. Sir, it is a great honor to have you with us, and we are thankful for your presence. Also, I see quite a number of people are joining us. Before I proceed, let me take a brief moment for the introduction of my organization. SAMS. SAMS Welfare Foundation is a non-profit entity established to work in the areas of education, social welfare, women empowerment, skill development, and entrepreneurship, livelihood generation, and employability, health, research, culture, international cooperation, sports, environment protection, or any other similar sectors. We promote healthy life, a balanced and active community, and a strong business. Now, let me introduce today's speaker to you all, Mr. Nishant Arora. Nishant leads marketing for IBM Data and Western All Software in the Asia Pacific region. Before this, he was lead product marketing for IBM's Cognitive Solutions portfolio following an industry lead GTM model. He has held multiple roles in IBM, introducing product marketing for IBM Internet of Things division, program manager for IBM Business Agility Champion, where he was primarily responsible for developing digital tactics for multiple countries and projects, managing development of the same. As he was hired in IBM as digital strategies web sphere brand. Before IBM, he was employed as a consultant with HP in Analytics division. He's an MBA in marketing and financing by education.
All right, so let's talk about product-led growth. I have a question for all of you before we started. When was the last time you purchased clothes without trying them, or you let your parents purchase clothes for you? Does that happen anymore, right? Like, do you wear what your parents choose for you? And you can just reply on chat, or you can come on unmute and we can have an engaging conversation over here. Okay, a month ago, nice. What about others? Like, so what is essentially the reason I'm asking you this question is when you start working, right? Like a lot of softwares that you use are not selected by you. Like there is somebody very senior who selects the software, and what ends up happening is sometimes the software are not of good quality. And this is where the software industry is moving. So initially, right, like we had very large applications which companies purchase, and once they purchase it, that's exactly what they will use. So something like an Oracle, and you continue to, like once you buy them, you continue to use them. And then came software as a service where you could buy a software online. The third phase is coming, what we call consumerization of IT. So what that means is people have the same expectation from software that they have from their personal apps. Like say, for example, when you're using Instagram, there is a lot of customization that you are able to do yourself. You don't need to reach out to somebody, right? Like, so it's a user-friendly interface. And same for WhatsApp, right? Like the interfaces are user-friendly, you continue to use them, and you don't necessarily need somebody to manage it for you. And what we are increasingly seeing is this trend is changing the way people buy IT software globally, and that is what we call product-led growth. A key component of product-led growth is people start using a product, and if the product is good, they will use the same product in their office environment. So the focus in product led growth is end user or the user. So it is not about impressing the CEO of a company. So there is a joke like software deals used to get closed on golf course because, like the decision maker didn't really care. Product led growth gives the person who's actually you're going to use the software the power to decide what software they're going to buy. And because of this trend, the fastest growing software companies in the world today are product led companies. Like if you think about these are the names you would have heard. Slack, right? So Slack is one of the fastest growing companies, or Dropbox, or Atlassian, by the way, is actually Jira. So Atlassian is the company that is behind Jira or Trello, which a lot of engineers use, or Datadog. So if and the one thing common is like these companies don't target executives. You can go to Slack's website and start using the product. You can go to Jira website and start using Jira, or Trello's website. You can start using Trello. You can go to Dropbox. You can start using Dropbox. And this is a mega trend. Like this started in 2012 with Log Me In, but if you look at it in 2021, now it has become a buzzword with so many more companies trying to get into product led growth. And some of the largest and the fastest growing startups today are product led growth. Like Zoom is an example, Shopify, even Freshworks, if you look at Indian context. The difference between a traditional sales model and PLG is PLG requires a new way to build and sell product. So we need to figure out a way how people will discover a product. How will they start using it? Then there is a thing called activating a product. So activation of a product is getting the value for the first time, and then you convert to become a paying customer. And the most important thing why PLG is a superior business model is, once users start buying you, there is an element of virality because of which the product starts to scale pretty quickly. So now let's talk about the journey in depth, right? So discover is, uh, like say for example you face a problem. So say for example you want to host a meeting online, like how we are doing it right now. So somebody would have searched for how to do it, and they figured out, okay, Zoom is an application that you can do it. Then people start go somebody goes to the website and they say, okay, this makes sense, and then somebody would have signed up on it, and then somebody set up this meeting, which is where the activation happens, and finally comes a conversion state. So if you look at Zoom, which is a classic PLG or product led growth motion, they give you 30 minutes for free, which means that anybody and everybody can use 30 minutes for free. But if you need a longer duration meeting, then you need to pay for it. And that is what we call conversion. And then becomes the scalability part. Now because you host or you invite other people to use Zoom, what ends up happening is other people also discover Zoom, and when they want to host another meeting, they will start with a trial and like set up 30 minutes meetings on Zoom, and then once their usage grows, they will also buy. So which is what we call scalability. So if you are in a company like with 10,000 employees, maybe one employee will start using Zoom, and then eventually you will realize 2 to 3 years later that almost every employee is buying or paying for Zoom. Another trend that is enabling is purchasing power getting decentralized. Now what is happening is these tools are becoming cheaper. So what people can do is they no longer need to go to IT and ask for permission to buy this. What they can do is they can just take permission from their manager and say, hey, this software is 100 rupees a month, and can I pay for it? And if there is value, their manager will approve it. They can claim the bill, and it's a cheap software. So that is how they keep growing. Now let's talk about how can business measure and optimize the new user journey. So the success and failure of a PLG motion is it's a very online way of selling software. Like if you look at Atlassian or Zoom, there's hardly any seller who will talk to you. So you discover it online. So you want to make sure that people are getting starting discovering your product, then they're starting on a trial, and there is a term that is used on the slide called freemium. So the difference between a trial and a freemium is that in a free trial, you are able to use the product for free for a limited number of days. So sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's 14 days. Freemium is you can use the product forever, but you will get some capabilities for free. Like Zoom is a freemium product. So Zoom, you can use that 30 minutes limit forever. Like you, if you want under 30 minutes of meetings, you can use it forever for free. But the moment you want advanced features, you will have to pay a premium to the organization to do it. Then it is extremely important to optimize the whole journey. And a lot of decisions, like when you're working on a PLG model, you need to decide, okay, what is it that we are going to do? Like depending on the value that your software has. So like there is a reason why Zoom is giving using a freemium model versus a free trial model, right? So you have to decide which model works for you versus which model does not work for you, and then optimize that based on what you decide. Like say for example, you should have enough search volume, so can people find your traffic online? Can you, once they are on your website, are they inspired to try the product? Once they try the product, are they inspired to activate the product? So in case of Zoom, the activation is, are they inspired to set up a meeting? Once they're inspired to set up a meeting, how are we inspiring them to become a paying customer? So this whole journey has to be orchestrated on the website, and with digital mediums, and the product experience has to be optimized so that you do not need a human to guide them. What I'm saying is there is going to be a role for sellers when they drive large enterprise deals, but for getting started on the journey, you should not need a seller to coach and guide you on how to do this. And you need to continuously measure how you're doing against the benchmark. So what you see on the slide are some of the benchmarks on what's the benchmark for free trial, what's the benchmark. Like say for example, for a trial, if there are 100 users, 17% should convert. This is a benchmark. In a freemium model, 5% convert. The reason for that is, in a freemium model, a lot of users can get a lot of value from the free model. Like I'm sure a lot of you know people who are just using the free version of Zoom, because if you are not in a corporate setup, you can always restart the meeting when you need more than 30 minutes. Like if you're just catching up with friends over Zoom and you exhaust your 30 minutes meeting, it's not a big deal. You can just restart the conversation. But when you're hosting a webinar like this one, you need to convert. So which is why the conversion rates on freemium models are lower. This does not mean freemium is bad, by the way. I want to clarify this just means that the way you derive value is different. So you are able to attract a lot more users to freemium model, and eventually at some point they're going to convert as well. Now what the other thing we want to tell you is, like, when companies succeed in product led growth, they have to leverage organic. Well, organic is nothing but how do they get discovered on the website. Like say for example, uh, Zapier, which is one company engineers would be very familiar with. Zapier has optimized its journey to be found online, right? Like if you want to do something, their integration pages come online. Or Quora, if you are like searching for some answer Q&A format answers, you sometimes the first link on Google is Quora, right? So you end up going to Quora even if you had no intention of, or you didn't even know Quora existed. Like you find a question, Quora has an answer, and you end up signing up for it. And then there is an element of virality. I think we've discovered the Zoom example or discussed Zoom example. More people set up the meeting, more people get exposed to the product, and then they start using it. Another example is Calendly. Even like I didn't know Calendly existed 4 years ago, and somebody sent me a Calendly link saying that, hey, I want to speak to you. And they sent me a Calendly link, and I saw it. I used that Calendly link to set up a meeting with them, and then I started using Calendly myself, right? Like because the value is instantaneous. It just, like instead of going back and forth on, hey, are you available on these times, and then the person says no, are you available on this time? Like there's a, like scheduling a meeting nowadays is so complicated, right? Like everybody has busy calendars. But if you use Calendly, you can just see, okay, this is the time this person is available, and I can set it up. It just cuts short the time it takes to set up a meeting. So and then there's a virality element from usage. Like, let's take how many of you are you guys familiar with Figma? Let me know, because I'm screen sharing, so I can't see what you guys do. But and or maybe it's better if I explain what Figma is. So Figma was a company that Adobe recently acquired for $20 billion. It's the largest acquisition of last year and one of the largest of all times. There are very few companies that have been acquired for more value than Figma. So Figma is used by designers, and what it allows you to do is it allows people to collaborate on a design. And because it allows people to collaborate, so say for example, if I start using Figma, the people I'm going to collaborate with, they also have to sign up to use Figma to collaborate with me. And because they have to sign up for Figma, they become users as well. So because of collaboration, there's a lot more usage of Figma compared to like other products, like, and which is one reason Adobe ended up buying them. And then there is an element of, okay, so HubSpot pioneered this. So in over here, the objective of a PLG product is not really to drive a sale, but it's got to do more with solving a problem for your customer so that you build your brand. So HubSpot launched a website grader that helps you rate your website, and this helped them create leads for their CRM product or their marketing automation product. So with that, I would want to go deeper into the example of Calendly, right? So they started in 2015. There's a very simple sign up. They've removed all friction, right? Like Calendly is just a like app that you use to schedule people calendars on somebody's like schedule a meeting with somebody, and it gives you access to their calendar without showing you what meetings they're doing. It just tells you, okay, what time they're available, what time they're not available. And it's very simple setup. Once you schedule it, then it has some advanced features, right? If you can even charge money for your meetings, so you can have a link online, somebody wants to speak to you, you can even integrate payments, a lot of additional features. And then when their visitors are signing up on their website, you will get all the answers you need. So the best part about PLG is that on the website, right, you need to be able to give all the answers that users may have. So because the model does not have sales involved, there's no human involved. So can you get all the answers? Like say, for example, somebody may have a question on, hey, I'm in a different time zone. How does that work? So that answer should be available easily for the customer. Okay. Then comes the activation stage, which is the most important stage. So say, for example, somebody is looking at some problem to solve. They come on the website, they start a trial. But the most important metrics over here is, okay, once they're engaging with you, they should derive value from you or activate it. Activation is what is called the aha moment. So it's the moment where the product delivers the value it was promised. And it's usually a one-time event, and it represents true value to the user. So activation is not like, say for example, if somebody just fills up a form and starts a trial, that's not activation. They need to get some value from the product. And it's one of the most important metrics in product-led growth. So let's talk about what are activation metrics. Like say for example, a Zoom is, so when somebody does a Zoom meeting within 7 days of sign up, so that's what activation metrics for Zoom is. For a Zapier, setting up a Zap is what they call a activation metrics. For Loom, like if you know what Loom is, they share a Loom with somebody else. That's a activation metrics, which is like essentially a video. As in PLG model, like the higher the adoption of an activation metrics, the higher the company is likely to succeed. When a user can interact with the product in a self-directed way, it can challenge to understand the nuance of the user experience. So most freemium and free trial product experience use an activation metrics to learn if the user are getting value. So think of it this way, right? Like activation metrics tells a company without the customer paying for them, that is the user getting value. If more and more, like going back to our Zoom example, if more and more people are setting up 30 minutes meetings on Zoom, they know, okay, they're getting a lot of value. And at some point when they need to set up the 1 hour long meeting, they are going to convert. And it's extremely important that for companies to measure activation rates. Now let's talk about what is a good activation rate. So good activation rate is, so people who come to your website and fill up a form, between 14 to 33% of those companies or those users should activate your product. And as we were determining, right, like every product has a different activation rate. So, and what are the variables that can affect a very, like if you are a single user activation, like say for example in case of Zoom, a single person can activate it. But in case of Figma or a Slack, so if you are using Slack, you need the other person to use Slack as well. So that means there are multiple people who need to use activation. So for Slack, the activation rate is 20, but for something like a Zoom, the activation rate can be 40. Now, once the person has activated its software, let's talk about converting. How does sale work at PLG companies, right? Like, to the end of the day, right? Like, activation is great because the user is driving value, but the company is successful once the user starts paying for them. So, which means that from a freemium product or a free trial, you should be able to monetize it and convert people to a paying customer. So Zoom makes money from people who pay for Zoom. Everybody else, it's deriving value from Zoom. And the reason they're offering a premium is just to attract more people on the journey to become a paid product. So uh, the rate for free trial is 17%, because the thing is, after a free trial period is over, if the customer saw enough value, they will buy it. Say, for example, or if you go to Freshworks website or Sprinkler website, you go to try Sprinkler Social, you derive value up in the trial period, you will likely pay for it. So there are 17% conversion rate from trial to a paying customer. But in case of freemium, because the person is driving value, there's no motivation and there's no time duration during which they're supposed to convert. So freemium companies convert at 5%. And then this conversion rate varies by software type. So if you're building an infrastructure or a developer software, the free to paid conversion is usually around 8%. For horizontal applications, it is around 6%. And for vertical applications, it is around 21%. Now, let's talk about how do you increase conversion rates. That is where you need to apply sales pressure at the right time, which means that you need to measure. So there is a concept called PQL, which is nothing but product qualified lead. Product qualified lead is like somebody is in your funnel, like somebody is using your product, they have activated it. So PQL is nothing but identifying a product who's much, or identifying a user who's much more likely to buy. And if your product is an enterprise sales product, like say for example a Figma or a Slack, so even if you have some users who are paying for it, like say 3 or 4 users, once they reach a credible threshold, like there are 10 users using, and potentially as a Slack, you believe that, okay, the entire organization can move to Slack. So you can set up a model at the back end, which will be like, okay, when there are 10 people using a product, I want to target the company from a sales team. So that is what you would call PQL. So uh, PQL allows you to send a lead to a seller. So even in case of Zoom, Zoom has a sales team. So once people in a company start using Zoom a lot, like there are say 100 out of say 1,000 people company, there are 100 people who are using it, Zoom will approach them and negotiate an enterprise license for the entire org. So organizations that leverage a PQL model have a free to paid conversion rate that are 20% higher than their peers without PQL, which goes back to the example that we were discussing initially, right? Like if you're using PQL versus not using PQL metrics, you will have lower conversion rate. Because think of it this way, right? Like if Zoom were to approach a company without the knowledge if their users are using Zoom or not, they may not even be entertained by the company. But if they are able to say, hey, 100 people in your company are already using Zoom and they're paying X amount of money, I will give you discount on the 100 users, but the whole company can use Zoom. That's a very different conversation, and the conversion rates are likely to be higher. So let's take an example of Notion, right? So Notion is one of the more popular PLG applications, which like a lot of startups are using these days, a lot of founders are using, and in fact, like a lot of people are using it, so much so that Microsoft has had to launch a Notion competitor, which is very similar in capabilities to Notion. Uh, so they examined, okay, what are the accounts or companies that are using high usage, and they have a professional brand. Like say for example, they're collaborating with other people in the company, they have many projects going on to understand how they use the product. Then they automated a reach out to the accounts based on what has been impactful manually. So they will automatically reach out to them saying that, okay, hey, you're using the product, you like it, so why don't you use it. Then they start prioritizing, okay, they start looking for interesting signups. Okay, so if there is a large companies that are signed up for using Notion, some users, then those are the companies that they can use. And customer sales team can work with existing users that raise their hands to buy, right? So essentially Notion built a very successful sales organization using the PQL motion. So, and I wanted to also share this meme, right? Like a lot of times people will go to buy on the website and they will abandon it, like how we do it with when we're buying stuff on Amazon. So PLG companies do tend to wait for users to complete the payment on their abandoned carts. So yeah, now once like you have acquired a few users that pay you, the next thing that is extremely important is scaling. How do you focus on users retention to grow? So see, PLG in most cases you pay on a monthly basis, right? Like, or you pay based on your consumption. So what that means is if you are using the product more, or if there are more users using the product, the amount of revenue the company will make is going to be more. So it is extremely important for the company to not just ensure it is delivering value to the users, but it is also important to grow it. So you need to make sure that companies are actively, or your users are actively using the product. Because think of it this way: you sign up for Zoom, you start paying Zoom for like using their meetings, and then you stop using it because you start liking Google Meet more, or you get a Google Meet account, which is a sign for Zoom, right? Like if you're not using Zoom and you're using Google Meet instead of Zoom, that you are not going to pay for Zoom when the time comes for renewal, right? Like say for example, if you paid for Zoom for 1 month and 15 days down the line you stop setting up any meetings, then Zoom would know, okay, right? Like if this person is not using it, I'm not going to get more revenue from them. So it is important for Zoom to make sure like they facilitate more value for you and they get you back. And it is extremely important that uh, they grow your usage as well, right? Like they want to make sure that all your virtual meetings are happening on Zoom. So like let's talk about Airtable, right? Like when somebody signs up for Airtable, they get activation event. Okay, they create something, and then once they surface up a popular template to encourage behavior, like say for example, they're looking for a use case, they will get a popular template. And then finally, when the user does not achieve key milestone, they will get a proactive reach out from what we call an SDR for that. And one thing I want to share with you, and this is my closing comment, right? Like a lot of companies call themselves PLG, which is like, like a lot of companies start a trial and then they say, okay, we are a PLG business. That's not PLG, as you would have seen from this presentation, that PLG is more to do with like thinking about how they discover the product to how they start using the product, how do they activate the product, how do they drive the value, how do you convert one person to a paying customer, and then how do you grow their usage or introduce virality so that you can get more users and you grow your revenue. So PLG is not just like right now, a lot of companies that call themselves PLG are just, like throwing a trial, and it's not PLG. So with that, I would end the presentation, but I do want to spend some time around Q&A. And I want to also talk a little bit about how you can build your career in PLG. So PLG, there are multiple roles that you can do, right? Like PLG essentially means that you're building in India for the world. So So there are roles like product management that you can pick up, that build the product, or you can do marketing, which is essentially, right, like solving the discoverability or usability part of it. Like marketing for a PLG company would build website that is attracting or converting to users, and when the person is using the product, they will make sure that they have enough material to self-service themselves. And once they are a paying customer, marketing would also ensure that they're using new latest and greatest features to adopt the product. Or you can be in customer support or customer service. Like any large account in a PLG company gets a CSM or customer success manager, whose responsibility it is to ensure that the company is using the product extensively. So what I want to conclude is that PLG is a massive change in the software business model. And as you would have seen from some research, India is going to be one of the fastest growing SaaS startup landscape, or India has the fastest growing SaaS landscape. A lot of Indian SaaS companies are adopting PLG, and it's going to be a great career for all of you if you want to get or build a career in PLG. And with that, I would open it up for any questions.
Thank you, sir. What a wonderful knowledge given by you, sir. I hope our audience learned many new things from this session. Once again, I would like to thank you for joining us and sharing your experience, your precious time and knowledge with us. So there are a few questions which our audience want to be answered. So with your permission, shall we?
So,
So the first question is, what is the product lead growth in the context of test product?
in the context of what?
Test product.
Text products. Text, right? TEXT.
Sir, SAAS.
Okay, SaaS products. Okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah, so PLG is just a form, like, see, SaaS is, how do I put it? PLG is the latest iteration of SaaS, right? So, SaaS products are evolving to be PLG products, and PLG is the next stage of evolution of SaaS products. If you look at it, the fastest growing SaaS companies are PLG companies. If you look at in India, right, like Freshworks is a PLG company, and Freshworks is like, you go to Freshworks website, you can try the product. Sprinkler is a PLG company, again, one of the fastest growing companies. You can go to Sprinkler website and try the product, but the category is SaaS. So software as a, so PLG companies are the fastest growing companies within the SaaS ecosystem.
Sir, one more question. How can you build a product that naturally drives growth for your test company?
So that is where it becomes extremely important to understand the user and their user needs, and how the product solves the user needs, and communicating that on the website and in the journey. So you, like, every product solves certain problems, right? So if you are able to communicate what problems you solve well and create a nice user interface, so yeah.
It was very effective for our audience. That was a very good piece of advice. Thank you, sir, for answering these questions.
Yeah, so I see one question from Jyoth, right? So Jyoth, the question is, in the PLG word, right? Like, uh, it's, if you want to get a job opportunity in SaaS or in PLG, they, almost all companies are hiring freshers, because as I said, right, like this is a new area where a lot of existing people or existing skills don't exist. So in India, especially, so you should look out for fresher openings that are posted, or you should intern in one of the SaaS or PLG companies. In fact, what I would recommend is like joining a startup, because startups, the hiring, what is it, like, difficulty of hiring is not that high, and build your skills and learn your skills in a smaller company, and then once you're ready, you can apply for larger companies. And having said that, right, like a lot of large companies are hiring freshers as well, so you just need to apply for the job openings. Incidentally, right, like most of the PLG companies didn't fire. In fact, like almost all PLG companies, even in a recession, are hiring, which is a testament of to the fact that PLG is the future of SaaS. So PLG companies are hiring. Like if you go to any of the PLG companies in India on LinkedIn, also you search, you will find a lot of job openings. And the smaller the company, the easier it is to get into. And if you're still not getting it, it's no harm doing an internship. And usually they give you decent internship. What I can tell you is like the internship salary in many cases is higher than starting salaries in full-time jobs in some other departments, right? Like what, how much a bank would pay you as a starting salary. People are making more money in internships in PLG companies. So the money is phenomenally better, and it's a very lucrative career. And as I said, right, like if you're interested, you build the right skills. There's nothing that will stop you.
Again, thank you all for attending to today's webinar. And if you have any additional questions, you can contact us by email or telephone. We are happy to provide additional support to you.